What is happening, everybody? Junior with Jet Pedals here. I am super excited to be with you today because we are going to be talking about all things eternity delay. We're going to be doing a deep dive on the workflow, how to save a preset, global settings, all of the features that we have jam-packed into this pedal. So unfortunately, that means there'll be no sound samples in today's video, but we will leave a link down in the description below where you can find all the different videos we have assembled for each different algorithm. All right, so strap in and let's get started. So let's talk about all the features that we had crammed into this little enclosure. First and foremost, when we had launched our Revelation Reverb a few years ago, we had been gathering feedback from you guys, and the two most requested features that you guys have asked for is analog dry-through and kill dry mode, both of which we had crammed inside this tiny little enclosure. And just like our Revelation Reverb, we've included our streamlined workflow of having your two different modes, your live mode and your preset mode, so you can jump quickly between two different delay sounds with a simple click of a switch. The Eternity is also set up to handle any pedal board you throw at it. So whether you are running mono in, mono out, we can handle that. Mono in, stereo out, stereo in, stereo out, or even stereo in and it'll sum to mono if for some reason you need to run mono out. The Eternity even has full MIDI control over every knob, switch, algorithm, or preset. It could even receive MIDI clock to control the BPM or use the onboard tap tempo switch. And last but not least, we've included some really cool features that are customizable within the global settings, but we'll get into the more details on that here in just a little bit. All right, so now let's dig into the operation of the Eternity and how that live mode and preset mode works. We'll talk about changing the algorithms, saving a preset, all that good stuff. So let's dig in over here on the pedal and let's take a look. Okay, so we're over here on the Eternity, and as you can see, we have two knobs. The mix knob and the repeats knob are illuminated. Right now they're the same color, but they mean two different things. The repeats knob lets you know which current algorithm is pulled up. So when you engage the pedal with a short press, you'll notice the bypass LED comes on, and now we are in the tape algorithm. You can set the knobs to your desired liking. If you want to change to the next algorithm, you just do a long press of the bypass switch. Hold that for 1 second, let go, and you'll notice the color changes. This takes you to the next algorithm. In this case, it's a digital delay. You can keep doing that until you make it through all 6 algorithms, and once you've reached the end, it'll cycle back to the tape algorithm. And here we're back to the tape algorithm. The illuminated LED on the mix knob lets you know which preset is queued up and ready to go. They have the same colors, and you can change a preset by doing a simple 2-button press. Now you'll notice the color of the LED has changed, letting you know the preset 2 is queued up. Okay, so how do we get into preset mode when you're in live mode? Currently we're in live mode because the bypass LED is on. We're in the tape algorithm because the repeats knob is illuminated to the cyan. And so in order to get to preset number 2, which is queued up, we just do a double tap of the bypass switch. You'll notice that the tap LED turns cyan, and then the rate LED is still purple, and you'll see the purple flashing, letting you know the BPM. So now we are currently in the preset number 2. One cool feature that we've added in the preset mode is you can now tell where all the knobs have been saved at simply by rotating the knob. You'll notice when I move away from it, the LED got dim, and then when you get back to where the preset was saved, it'll brighten back up again. Same thing here, you can move away. This happens with each knob. And then down here, you'll notice your bypass LED gets dim when you rotate these knobs, and then it'll come back. And then same thing over here, your tap or your preset mode LED will get dim when you rotate these knobs. So they get dim, and then they'll get bright again when you've got back to your stored location. Okay, so to jump back and forth between preset mode and live mode, you just do the same thing. A double tap of the bypass switch, the LED will turn off, letting you know you are not in preset mode anymore. And the bypass LED is on, letting you know that you are in live mode. So now let's talk about how we save a preset. Let's say we wanted to save a preset to this preset number 2. Let's move all of our knobs to the outside, something different than where it was before. And then all we have to do is simply hold down the bypass switch for 3 seconds. You'll see the light flash, which confirms you've saved the preset. So now if we jump back into preset mode, we'll be able to see our new saved preset. So we'll double tap to go into preset. You'll notice we're in preset mode by the LED here. And then let's have a look at our knobs. So that goes dim, and then as soon as we get back to where we had them saved, they go bright again, letting you know we just saved a preset to that location. That's it. Saving a preset is that simple. All you need to do is set all your knobs and switches to where you want it, cue up the preset where you want to save it at, and hold down the bypass switch for 3 seconds. All right, so the last feature we want to talk about here is the tap tempo and how that works. The Eternity Delay has built-in tap tempo. It is a global tap tempo. You cannot save your BPMs within each preset, as the tap tempo is global across the whole pedal. But we did include one of the most advanced tap tempos on the market, which is something you don't see very often. And so let's dig in, let's look at the pedal and see how that works. So in order for the tap tempo to update, you must tap it in at least 3 times. Give it a quick second and then the tap tempo will update. One of the cool features that we put into the Eternity is that the tap tempo will always sync to the downbeat of whatever song you're playing in, or the BPM that you're playing in. So let's give you an example of what this looks like. So I've got a metronome here. We're gonna set our metronome to 72 BPM. And so when we tap this in, you'll see that the rate indicator will update and always flash on the downbeat of your BPM. So give it a second, it'll update, and now it flashes on the downbeat, completely in sync with the rate indicator. Now, as you know, tap tempo is not always perfect. That's why we've included MIDI clocks. So if any of you MIDI users out there, you'll be able to update the BPM via MIDI clock, and then you will have it perfectly in sync with the BPM of your song. All right, so we've gone over how the tap tempo works, but one last thing I wanted to mention is that in order to get your BPMs as close as possible when you're tapping in, our tap tempo switch will average out all the presses. So the more presses you give it, the closer you're gonna get to the actual BPM of the song. All right, so now let's talk about what the knobs do, especially the Control 1 knob, which is not very obvious, like mix and repeats. And then let's dig into the algorithms, and we can show you what the Control 1 knob does for each algorithm. So our first algorithm is indicated by the cyan color over here on the pedal, and this is our tape algorithm. Let's talk about the knobs real quick. Obviously you have mix. So your mix knob, like I mentioned before, you have stereo analog drive through. So your dry actually never gets changed, but as you increase the mix knob all the way up, your repeats get louder and louder up to a point where your repeats are actually louder than your dry signal. So mix is pretty self-explanatory. We don't do a 0 to 100% wet in this case, but we do have kill dry mode if you need to remove your dry signal. Repeats, again, pretty self-explanatory. Counterclockwise is minimum repeats, and full clockwise is almost close to oscillation, but not quite all the way there. You have your subdivision switch, which toggles between quarter note in the up position, dotted eighth in the middle position, and then eighth note down at the bottom. So the next knob, which is not completely self-explanatory, is the filter knob. And what that does is when completely turned counterclockwise, this lets the full frequency spectrum of your repeats to come through, or pass through, I guess. And as you rotate that up clockwise, you will roll off your high end and your repeats will get darker and darker and darker as you rotate that clockwise. The Control 1 knob does something different in every algorithm, and in this case, let's talk about what it does for the tape algorithm, which we are in. When rotated fully counterclockwise, you have a nice, pristine, like new age, like a brand new tape delay machine. So, you know, when the tape delay machines get older, you actually get a little bit of wow and flutter in there. Your repeats get a little darker. You get some of these artifacts that just kind of make your delay sound get a little bit less pristine. So in this case, when the Control 1 knob is completely counterclockwise, it's like a brand new tape machine where you have just a little bit of low end roll off, but you really have very minimal wow and flutter. As you roll the Control 1 knob up, you will start to introduce some wow and flutter, as well as each successive repeat will get a little bit darker. And so this Control 1 knob goes from minimum, which is a pristine tape delay, and then as you roll that up fully counterclockwise, you're gonna have very dark repeats and lots of wow and flutter. All right, let's move on over to the digital delay. So again, as we already showed you, to change algorithms, you just do a long press. Your repeats knob will change. In this case, it's a kind of a greenish color, letting you know that this is the digital delay algorithm. Our digital delays are nice, clean, pristine digital delays. Repeats, mix, and filter all work the same for every algorithm, and the Control 1 does something different for each algorithm. So in this case, in the digital delay, what we do is when the Control 1 knob is completely counterclockwise, you have a nice pristine digital delay. What goes in, goes out, no filtering going on. You'll have lots and lots of repeats as we're not removing any high end or low end frequencies. And as you rotate the Control 1 knob clockwise, you will start to introduce a little bit of grit and overdrive to the repeats. So now this is input sensitive, so if you play harder and dig in harder, you're gonna notice more breakup and grit on your repeats. And if you play lighter, it's gonna be less noticeable. Okay, so now let's move on to the analog algorithm. Again, a long press of the bypass switch, and now we've changed to the yellow color. Yellow indicates that we are in the analog algorithm. Our analog delay has a nice warm repeat. Each repeat gets a little bit darker, kind of like the tape algorithm, but it's not as noticeable. It just gives you a nice warm repeats. And then as you rotate that Control 1 knob up, you will start to introduce a little bucket brigade noise into your signal. So the noise again is input sensitive, like the digital delay. Play harder, you're gonna get some more noise. Play softer and it's gonna be less noticeable. And as you roll the Control 1 knob clockwise, in addition to that bucket brigade noise, you're gonna get some nice warm modulation that gets incorporated into your repeats. So that is the analog algorithm. All right, so now let's move on to the dual delay. Let's head back to the pedal. Again, another long press. We'll change colors, and this brings you into the orange color. It's kind of a burnt orange, I guess. That indicates that we are in the dual delay algorithm. So let's talk a little bit about this algorithm. It's got quite a bit going on, and you actually get a few different sounds depending on the position of the toggle switch. So first and foremost, there's two delays in here. The mix knob controls delay 1, and the Control 1 knob controls the level of delay 2. Delay 2 is always going to be fixed to a dotted eighth delay subdivision, and delay 1 will be determined based on where you set the toggle switch. So in this case, the toggle switch is set up to quarter note, so delay 1 will be a quarter note delay, and delay 2 will be dotted eighth. So very typical, great delay for worship. The delay 1 is our analog algorithm without any modulation on it. And then the delay 2 is a digital delay. And so here's where things get interesting, is when you flip the toggle switch to the dotted eighth position, we're not actually going to have two dotted eighth delays. Delay 1 is now going to be what they call the golden ratio delay. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's a different subdivision than your typical dotted eighth, or quarter note. And you get some really nice rhythmic delays going on in this setting. So that is what happens when the toggle switch is in the middle position. And then when the toggle switch is down, delay 1 is your eighth note delay. And again, delay 2 is always fixed at dotted eighth. So that is the dual delay algorithm. Okay, so let's move on to the ESD algorithm, which stands for echo, slap, and doubler. So just like the dual delay, the toggle switch is going to set which mode you're in. But before we get into that, let's jump over to the pedal and talk a little bit about the tap tempo. So the tap tempo is designed to give you somewhere between 60 BPMs and 160 BPMs. This is important to note because in the quarter note setting, this is going to be your echo mode, and so you're going to get echoes from about, I'd say, 333 milliseconds when you tap it in at 60 BPM, all the way up to 125 milliseconds when you tap it in as fast as you can. You can also hold down the tap switch for a second or two, and you'll notice this takes you to your max BPM. I bring this up because this is actually a quick way to get a nice slap sound. If you want a 125 millisecond slap, you can just go into the echo mode, you can hold down the tap button, and now you are in 125 millisecond slapback type delay. So same thing applies when we switch into here. We go into slap mode, and slap mode, again at 60 BPMs, is going to take you from about 100 millisecond slapback, and then if you go all the way to as fast as it goes, it's going to get you really close to doubling territory, somewhere around the 50 milliseconds or so. And then when you switch the toggle switch down to the 8th note position, now you're in doubling territory, and if you hold down the tap switch as fast as it can go, you're going to be around 45 milliseconds. And then when you tap it in around 60 BPMs, you're going to get about 20 milliseconds. All right, so now let's talk about what the Control 1 knob does with the ESD algorithm. What we're doing is actually providing a stereo width for your slapback. So you're going to notice as you listen to when you're playing, it'll sound like your delays, your slapbacks, or your echo is kind of in the middle of your ears, and as that Control 1 knob increases, you'll notice that that slapback and echo gets wider and wider within your ear space. So depending on where the toggle switch is set, you can either have a nice echo with some repeats that are kind of out of time, which is great for like a lead sound, or you can have a really quick slapback that you can dial into, or maybe even a doubler for hitting some really huge rhythm chords. So that is the ESD algorithm. Last and not least, this is our Jet signature rhythm delay, and this is probably one of my most favorite delays on the pedal because I love playing rhythm guitar, huge, overdriven, fat sounds, and this delay is made to get that sound even bigger, even fatter. So let's dig in and see what that looks like. Heading back to the pedal, again, do a long press of the bypass switch. Now you kind of have this purplish LED, and this is the Jet signature rhythm delay. And what that does is you still have your toggle switch, quarter note, dotted 8th, or 8th note. Your mix and your repeats control the level of your delay, which is a nice, just analog, warm delay, no modulation. And then the Control 1 knob is a slapback at 100 milliseconds. And with the Control 1 knob, as you increase that clockwise, you're actually increasing the loudness of the slapback. So dial in just the right amount of slapback, a nice long or low mix, long repeat, analog delay, and you've got yourself a huge fattening sound for rhythm delays. Okay, last but not least, we are going to dig into the global settings and show you how to access that within the Eternity and what options are available. So any MIDI enabled pedal needs to be able to change the MIDI channel. So let's dig in and show you how to do that. Let's head over to the pedal. So to access the global settings, you need to hold down the bypass switch when the pedal is first powered on. So let's remove power, plug that back in, and hold down the bypass switch until the LEDs turn white. Okay, so now we are in global settings mode. So in order to change the MIDI channel, you rotate the Control 1 knob. As soon as you rotate it, you'll notice the LED down here starts to flash. It's going to flash the number of times for which channel you're in. So it's indicating channel 1 right now. As you rotate the Control 1 knob, you'll notice the LED starts flashing, letting you know you are now in channel 2. 1, 2. And of course, you can go all the way up to 16. It'll have a 2-second pause whenever it reaches the end. So let's just say we want to save the pedal to MIDI channel 3. Let's turn it up until the LED is flashing 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Now all we have to do is hold down the bypass switch, and it's going to save that in permanent memory and exit the global settings. Let's show you how to turn on and off kill dry mode. Let's head over to the pedal, take a look. Again, we hold down the bypass switch when you turn the power on until the LEDs turn white, letting you know that we are in the global settings mode. Whenever you press the tap switch, the LEDs will turn red, letting you know that you are in kill dry mode. Red's kind of a warning, letting you know you're not going to get any dry signal to pass through. And then you can always toggle that back and forth. Regular mode, kill dry mode, and regular mode. You can hold down bypass switch like we did before to exit global settings mode. But before we do that, let's talk about another cool feature that we added in. So we have 6 presets on board. You can toggle through those with the 2-button press. But let's say you don't need all 6 presets and you don't want to press the button 6 times. Let's just say you want the first 3 presets on the pedal. You can adjust that within the global settings as well. Let's head over to the pedal and take a look. So as you rotate the filter knob, you'll notice that the LED is going to flash just like the MIDI channel does, but this time it's only going to go from 1 to 6. So all the way over here, it's going to flash 6 times, letting you know we're going to have access to all 6 presets. So in our example, let's say we only wanted 3 presets. So in this case, it's going to flash 1, 2, 3. That's saying that we have 3, we're only going to be able to toggle through 3 presets. Let's give that a shot. Let's exit our global settings. And now when we cycle through our presets, it should only go up to preset number 3 and then back to 1 again. Preset number 1, preset number 2, preset number 3, and then back to preset number 1, which we had done by saving in the global settings. And so the last feature I want to talk about is probably the most requested feature from you guys. And so let's say that you have your favorite algorithm or your favorite preset that you want to pull up on the pedal all the time. You don't want to have to cycle through all the presets or the algorithms to have that pulled up. Well, now you can adjust that in global settings. So instead of having the pedal fire up with the first preset ready to be queued up and the tape algorithm, just like it is now where both LEDs are in the cyan mode, you can change that in global settings. So let's head on over to the pedal and take a look at that and see how we can adjust that. All right, here we are in the pedal. We're going to recycle power and get back into the global settings. Hold down the bypass switch until the LEDs turn white, indicating you're in the global settings. All right, so now all we have to do is you can rotate the repeats knob to say which algorithm you want queued up. So you'll notice as we rotate it, the colors change. It goes from cyan to green to yellow to orange. So let's kind of leave it in this orange mode here, which is our dual delay. So let's say the dual delay is your favorite algorithm that you want to pull up. And then let's say maybe preset number 3 is your favorite. So if we turn that all the way to minimum, that's preset 1, preset 2, preset 3. Now it's going to call up preset 3 and then the dual delay algorithm when you first fire up the pedal. So let's save that into permanent memory by holding down the bypass switch. You'll exit the global settings, and now when the pedal fires up for the first time, you'll notice your dual delay algorithm is queued up and your preset number 4 is queued up, ready to go. So just to confirm that we have done that and that's saved in permanent memory, let's go ahead and recycle power to the pedal and let's see what happens as we power it up. And as you can see, we have the dual delay algorithm fires up and preset number 3 fires up. Okay, so there you have it. That pretty much wraps up everything that we wanted to show you inside the global settings, and we know that you are going to enjoy some of these new features that we have packed inside the Eternity. Well, here we are. We're now at the end of the video. We've gone over the overview of the pedal, the workflow of the pedal, and all the algorithms and global settings. But if there's anything you guys still have questions on, go ahead and drop us a line down in the comments below, and we'll get to those questions just as soon as we can. So until next time, we'll see you guys later.